Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to yet another session of our Raw Conversations with my friend Jared. And in today's episode, we just wanted to talk about everything to do with the brain and just how the brain contributes to our understanding our human experience. And I feel the best place to start is with a quote from a Greek philosopher who has become known as the father of modern science. His name is Hippocrates. And this quote goes something like, "Men ought to know that from the brain, and from the brain only, arise our pleasures, joys, laughter, and jests, as well as our sorrows, pains, griefs, and tears." The reason why I felt it's of primary importance to start off with this quote is that because it kind of summarizes the main argument we're trying to bring to the table today, which is that if you think about our human experience and what it is that makes us human, it's entirely our brains. So we don't have minds, we are brains. And that statement kind of sounds very simple, but when you really propound it, everything that makes us so animated and everything that makes us conscious human beings, and that aspect in us that gives us our own subjective conscious experiences, is our brains. And we have made considerable progress in the field of neuroscience. Looking back in the days, there was little that we knew about what it is that made us human, but we made so much progress in neuroscience. And in today's particular episode, we just want to talk about our brains and what it is that makes us human beings. Jared, what's your first take on that? Like, just how would you prefer we open this up?
First of all, it's an interesting phenomenon, Sarah, because as you've put it, everything that we are and everything that we are not is entirely upstairs. So our brains are everything that we think of. Our brains are everything that decides what we eat. Our brains are everything basically. So when you think of yourself, normally you think of this subconscious that you have.
Yeah.
So that subconscious, that thing that tells you what to do next, what not to do, and so on and so forth, your morals and all those things, is your brain. So you are the brain.
Exactly.
It's a very interesting argument, really, and the fact that we're getting to propound it right now is quite amazing. I think a lot of people get to learn a lot, really. I think myself inclusive, because I've read about the brain, but I've not taken keen interest in finding out how powerful this particular organ is. So I think, Sarah, just to put it in stone, I think it's only important that we get to discuss the one organ that builds us, that destroys us.
Yeah, true. And I think just to get to the meat of what we're trying to say is it's not necessarily that we are going to give like a whole outline brief on the ins and outs of the brain, but our primary interest basically is how the brain makes us humans, how the brain contributes to our human experience. So say, for example, to take you back, there was a time I watched a conversation between Deepak Chopra, Michael Shermer, and Sam Harris, and there was this lady in the debate. I've also forgotten her name, but she said something like, throughout history, a lot of people have been trying to find who is doing the looking. Like when we look, when we experience life, who is actually looking? Do we have anything, any metaphysical aspect of ourselves? Or do we have any like immaterial thing that's inside us that's actually generating this human experience, that how we are so animated, how we are able to speak, how we're able to communicate, how we're able to express love, how we're able to express emotions like hate, jealousy, envy, all these things. Like, what is it about us that connects from all this? And then one important aspect I also want us to talk about is when we're talking about what it is that makes us human, there are two questions that arise in different schools of thought and philosophy. So there's this question like, we're able to understand our brain, like how it works, how it functions. That's called the easy problem of consciousness. And then the hard problem of consciousness is how from a physical brain, where something unphysical like our consciousness, our love, our hate, and all these things is able to arise, Has that ever crossed your mind, like how matter can produce intangible things like human connections, friendships, and all these things?
All right. I'd love to think, first of all, that it's not us that understands our brain.
Yeah.
Our brain understands us because it's like at the center of everything, you know.
Yeah, it's like when you're trying to understand yourself, that's the brain trying to understand itself. Yeah.
Like the brain it's so amazing how you can use the brain to learn about the brain. You know?
Yeah, true.
So, getting back to your question, I, for one, have thought about it, you know.
Yeah.
When I'm looking, when I'm seeing things, and when I'm reasoning in a certain way, who does the thinking?
Yeah.
You know, is it the subconscious in me? Is it something in me that lives in me and does the thinking for me, then sends it to my brain? Because funny enough, the brain can interact within itself.
Yeah.
You can have a whole argument inside your head.
Yeah, and there's this thing where I don't know if you also feel the same way, but there's this thing like you feel like the you. You're not your material body, but there's you.
There's you inside.
Like you feel like you're in your head somewhere. Like you feel like your ego lies somewhere behind your eyes. There's like a localization because most people don't feel like they're in their heart.
Yeah.
Or they're at their legs.
It's upstairs.
Like you feel like you're up there. How do you connect with that kind of like emotion?
Well, it's something complex, really, if you ask me, because when you deeply think about it, you get to understand that even within the brain itself, there are a lot of places that we've not yet explored. You know, so the deeper you introspect, the more you try to get inside yourself, if there's such a term. I think the more you get to realize that there's a very huge connection, if I to put it that way, a huge connection between your brain and your physical being, because your ego, your fears, your everything lies inside your brain. So everything that you do, starting from the time that you are born, or your fears, or your strengths, or your talents, or your aspirations, everything is kind of bored up inside your brain. So to come out today with somewhat a revelation to many that you are not your physical being. This body is just your physical existence, but then there's something beyond you, and that is your brain. So it's something amazing, really, if you ask me. It's an amazing phenomenon. When you ask most people, ask the average person, ask them, who are you? Nobody will ever tell you they are their brains. Nobody. The average person will tell you, I am motivated, I am blah blah blah.
Or there's like a me inside me.
Like there's a you inside you, you know. So that you inside you that you talk about is actually your brain.
And just going back to, say, Hippocrates, he was legendary in his time because the idea that he was putting across, it was quite new for his time. I mean, most people back in the days, especially like Greek philosophers, the idea that we have a soul. Like this is something that even Plato had propounded on so much. He was like, we have something that's inside us that makes us who we are. It makes us human. We're able to love. Because the conflict usually was coming up about from the fact that people don't like this idea that everything can be reducible to laboratory tests. Like, some take offense when you tell them that, look, there are certain emotions that we can really change in the lab. We can change, we can alter your levels of trust just by messing around with your synaptic firings. We can alter your level of attachment emotionally to somebody just by us messing around with your neurons or your neurophysiology. And then that messes up people's minds. They hate it to do it because they want values to be so detached from your physicality and your brain. And just imagine, wouldn't you personally find it unsettling if you found out that we could change how you're emotionally attached to somebody just by messing around, say, for example, with your oxytocin or something like that?
It makes the whole love argument really so simple.
And so material.
So materialistic. It reduces down to that. Because, when human beings are attached to something, not just other human beings can be attached to dogs, they can be attached to their properties or anything of that sort. The idea to that attachment is that it is felt at the heart's core.
Like it's something that you can't measure.
You can't measure.
You can't put it in a test tube. You can't. Like it's more like when you put it in a test tube, you reduce its worth.
But then in that sense, the real argument here is that means that you can actually control how much you can love somebody.
Yeah.
And it puts it puts human beings in a position of, I think that we can call them smaller gods or demigods or something, because it's like you're able to measure just how much of yourself you can give and be able to reserve at the same time.
Exactly.
So when you break it down to the scientific realm, you're able to tell that it's not really the pumping of the heart that happens when you're with somebody that determines how much you love them. Because what's causing the heart to pump that much is actually...
there's a role that there's a role that your brain plays too in that process.
It's doing everything. It's not just your brain is not playing a role. It is the role. Like it is assigning. It is telling the heart to behave a certain way. It's telling your hands to behave a certain way. It's telling your eyes to glitter in a certain way.
Exactly.
So it brings the entire love argument to science.
And everything is reducible to a naturalistic explanation. And the reason why I decided to bring in this whole oxytocin thing, in some circles, oxytocin is called the love molecule, the moral molecule, and all those sorts of things. Because in the past, what we used to just know of oxytocin was it's just a hormone that is predominant in lactating mothers and also women during birth processes, but also and it also plays a part in your emotions, like how you bond with people and stuff like that. So if your oxytocin levels can be just shot up, you find that you're more loving and you're just nice all of a sudden. And then these are things that can be reducible to your brain. It's not like there are values that go beyond your brain. These are stuff that we can mess with in the lab, and then that feeling is just mind-boggling for people, like it reduces us to nothing but beast machines, which is just like something that people don't want to hear.
What's more unfathomable to many is the fact that you're able to tell them we can reduce how much attracted you are to something or somebody. We can reduce or increase it, and it can happen in a lab.
Exactly.
What you need is a test tube, maybe a few needles here and there. I'm not a surgeon, but according to the information that I have, that is doable. So I think this puts you and I in a position to be able to know. I think we can even choose, you can choose what to be attracted to, because at the end of the day, because you have the understanding that it is the brain controlling all these things, and it starts there, it ends upstairs.
And it also kind of rubbishes this idea of how we can really say that someone is morally responsible for certain acts. I can give you an example. I've just forgotten this guy, but he was like a guy that just went haywire. So he assassinated his mom, killed his wife, and then he went to a building. He's an American guy. He went to the top of a building and shot a lot of people, like students, university-going students. And then after he was caught, assassinated, that when investigations were carried out, the police officers found a letter where he was saying, you know what, this guy was saying, I don't know exactly what's happening. I think after you capture me and kill me, do an experiment, do like
an
experiment on my brain, test me out and see if I was really okay. Then they actually did that and found that something was like pressing on his amygdala, messing around with his actions, and that became like a very convincing case study where you go like, some people who are doing these reprehensible things or these like morally evil things can to some extent just have wrong brain states and stuff that are like messing them up to a point where if we could just get into their brains and peer into their brains and see exactly what's happening, maybe we could reach a point where we could find a way to medically correct these people we just dub psychopaths. And that could be a whole breakthrough.
So my understanding of this is that for most people, like most, what do you call them again? I don't want to call them delinquents.
Oh no, you mean the people that just
Yeah,
we
like you go
psychopaths.
haywire. You're not in this world. You live in a
true.
world of your own.
Yeah.
There's some mechanism somewhere upstairs that forces them to do certain things. And there's a very high probability as we speak that we can actually stop them before they reach an advanced stage of maybe killing people, maybe doing all these things. There's a level at which we can stop
some oxytocin in them.
Yeah,
I
inject
know
or remove.
I know it's not as easy as that, but you can just give them oxytocin.
Give them a dose of oxytocin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you can reduce. I think you can reduce or increase the levels of oxytocin
because it's predominant only in women and stuff. Like
okay, so the more oxytocin that you have, the more loving you are.
Yeah.
The more attracted you are to people, and so. I would love to look at it in this way.
Yeah.
For people who cannot love, because the people who are cold at heart, I want to bring this home, you know.
Yeah.
The people who are cold at heart, all they need is some oxytocin.
Yeah, a dose of oxytocin.
You don't even need love. You just need a dose of oxytocin.
You just need a dose of just inject those stupid niggas.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be okay. They will start loving. You know, they just need some oxytocin. Of course, it's not as easy and
as well as making it
but
seem, yeah.
there could be considerable change in just giving people a dose of oxytocin because at the end of the day, it all starts and ends in the brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It all starts and ends in the brain because there's this steps where you go, which they call, I've forgotten the actual name for it, but let's just say the vegetative state. You know, like where you could be like entirely motionless, your body is entirely paralyzed, but somewhere inside you're still conscious. You're not like in a coma or something.
Yeah, so
because you still have an operating brain.
Okay, so your brain is working and it's able to process what's going on.
Exactly.
But you just can't be conscious.
Yeah, you just can't be conscious. Like you are conscious. You are conscious quite alright. Like you're aware of what's happening and stuff like that. But your body is immobile. Like you're unable to move. So you're still alive. You're able to perceive your surrounding and stuff like that, but your body can't move. The point was, the fact that your brain is alive, you are alive. You're still a human being. And maybe you're just in a complicated situation, but the fact that you still have an operating brain, we can dub you as a human being. Yeah.
You know, this takes me back to, I think there was a time when you and I were propounding this brain issue. I think it should be our first episode or so. And we were thinking there's a very high probability that in the future we could have human beings do a whole brain transplant. I don't know if you remember. But
we're talking about, I think I remember, were we talking about moving your brain states to a robot or something like that?
Yeah, to a robot. We're talking about artificial intelligence, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a very high probability now that we I don't want to call it bring down or drag down love and all these emotions to mere science.
Yeah.
But then now that we've made a discovery, or people have made a discovery, that everything is actually a mixture of chemicals in your head going on, there's a very high probability that we could have conscious robots.
Exactly. Like those are conversations that are being had, especially in neuroscience circles. Like, what if we could make robots that are able to have subjective conscious experience?
Robots that can love.
Yeah, robots that can love, robots that can sense like moral action. And then if that's the case, then we have to start talking about our AI in moral terms.
Yeah.
We have to now start talking about introducing a legal system that's like accommodating of like our AI, which is just going to be totally different. And if you've noticed, movies actually put out experiences that at first seem like science fiction, but as time goes, they become reality. Yeah,
they become reality.
Which is shocking. It could be like, I've forgotten that Will Smith movie where there was like, iRobot. Yeah, iRobot. We could have something like that, you know, like where a robot develops like subjective consciousness. And then they're able to make moral determining actions. And then if they're able to reach that point, then you start feeling some kind of way in just breaking the robot, you know, like it hits you differently now.
Yeah. So we could reach a level where we could be hugging robots and they feel it.
Not only hugging, but we could be, marrying robots.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? In the
So for people who can connect with other human beings, who knows? Maybe your soulmate is a robot or
I've
something.
already started marrying robots.
Yeah,
If you think about it, we're already like getting intimate with robots. I mean, yeah.
So for some of you who may have a very filled love life, well, this is the fun fact about science. Who knows? Maybe your soulmate is a robot and it's being manufactured somewhere in
we
China.
digress. But the point was, we just wanted people to have, like, to reconcile themselves with the idea that you don't have any immaterial soul inside you that lives or survives the death of your material body. When your brain dies, you have died. You have practically just died.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and you're not going anywhere.
You're staying 6 feet under.
You know what Hitchens said at one point in his debate? He was like, someone was asking him, so you're basically saying you're just a piece of meat that's able to understand its world around it and stuff like that. Is that all you're saying? That's all there is to your life? And then he was like, shoot me in the head and I won't act like this. And I won't be coming back to bother you either.
Well, yeah.
His point was, just shoot him in the head and then everything that makes him have that subjective human experience will just disappear.
To no longer be around.
It will no longer be around. You can have a failed heart, but your brain, if it's dead, you have died.
Yeah, dead.
You're just dead. So, like, in summary, what would you say would be your major takeaway?
Well, my major takeaway is that it's really fun to learn that I can actually control what I feel towards people, and these are chemicals. These are chemicals. We're not rubbishing the idea that you love people.
It's actually liberating when you realize that you're just a piece of meat, a bunch of chemicals in your brain. Because your brain has about like 90 billion neurons.
Yeah.
And don't tell me you think these neurons cannot be responsible for your complicated actions. For me, speaking like this and all this, those are a lot of neurons. Somebody actually said it wouldn't even take a lifetime if you started counting neuron after neuron after neuron after neuron. It just wouldn't work. You know what I mean? So like, it shouldn't be such an uncomfortable thought to just know that you're material.
Okay.
You are your brain.
So the summary I think that we have here is that you are your brain.
Yeah, and that's a thought that you should embrace. And a book recommendation, actually, Dick Swab has a book called We Are Our Brains, From the Womb to Alzheimer's.
There we die.
Yeah, which is like, all of us get that. At some point, we all get that disease, like where our brain starts failing. Because our brain is like an engine.
Yeah.
And then it will run out of fuel to burn, right? Then we'll die.
That's the time that we're
deep. And then, okay, before we close, a few words about death, man. Like, death is just... Okay, we've drifted from the topic, but just... It's funny how most people just don't think about death.
Yeah.
So much.
I for one, think about it.
Yeah. Like, what's your thought about it? Like, what's your take? You... Okay, no, let me not put words in your mouth. What's your take?
You know the one thing I think about death?
Yeah. And it's funny how we're talking about death so happy. Like, it's just unreasonable.
Like, death, I think about my death. I don't think I would take it the same way if somebody that was close to really die. But my death, it's just a switch. Yeah, and that's all. Like, it's done. I'm out of fuel.
And you know what made me so comfortable about this whole dying thing? That just made me feel like I shouldn't be scared of death.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this thing called general anesthesia? So like, they give you that shit and then you just switch off. You don't have conscious experiences.